Hurricane Beryl made landfall in Texas this morning. We'll find out the path it is expected to take. We've got an update from the world of used machinery markets, and we will get the details of potential changes to one of the most complicated commodity pricing formulas in the business.
Live from Monday via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. Then it's Dr. Roger Cryan from the American Farm Bureau Federation. Directly following the news, Brett Waltz from BAM WX. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
All right, Davis. Hey, buddy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Here we are, Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Monday morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a great day to be alive, my friend.
Well, it is. It absolutely is. But it definitely feels like a Monday morning to me.
Does it?
Yeah. A little slow to start. A little slow.
Fair enough. Yeah. I've had a bit of a Monday myself today, but man, it feels good to be here with our friends and neighbors, doesn't it?
There you go. I love that. It is a beautiful morning, 70 degrees.
Yeah.
No, there's no breeze, but the humidity is it's tolerable up here. Mm-hmm. But we had another 1.7 inches of rain overnight, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You didn't probably order that, did you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Wrong shipping address, maybe.
I'm telling you, when the vegetation in the timber starts to look like it's getting too much water, we've probably had too much water.
You've had enough. Yeah.
That's probably enough. Anyway, we'll find out from Brett Waltz what to expect coming up here pretty quick. Yeah, Beryl went from a very strong hurricane to a tropical depression and back to a Cat 1 before it hit the Gulf of Texas, or the coastline of Texas. And we'll find out what the path is and what it looks like. It looks like it might bring some rain into the Midwest. We'll find out from Brett coming up. We got Greg Peterson today, Machinery Pete, with a really cool story about where he's going to be in the week ahead. And then we're going to talk about the Federal Milk Marketing Order with Roger Cryan from AFBF. That's coming up at the bottom of the hour. All right, man, let's get to the news.
Well, we'll start with the weather. You did mention Hurricane Beryl. It's expected to bring very heavy rain, damaging hurricane-force winds and life-threatening storm surge to the Texas coast today. Extreme heat, meanwhile, refocuses over the desert southwest and interior Pacific Northwest. More heat and humidity for the mid-Atlantic as well. Chip, Hurricane Beryl has made landfall in Texas, affecting over about 1 million people under a hurricane warning. The storm has caused severe wind and rain, particularly impacting the coast and resulting in the cancellation of hundreds of flights in and out of Houston, Texas. Chip, all three major stock indices registered gains for the week, with the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 ending in record territory. The S&P 500 hit its 34th record close of the year on Friday. Its rally for 2024 has grown to 16.7%. The NASDAQ also closed at a new high, and its year-to-date gain has reached 22.3%. Unfortunately, Chip, the ag commodity markets have not fared quite as well this morning.
No, they haven't. The ag commodity markets are sharply lower. We've got the Dow about 150 points higher. We've got the NASDAQ about 30 points higher. So things are moving to the upside in the equities.
Well, the House and Senate return from the July 4th recess. Besides the focus of President Biden's fate, lawmakers will hold a number of hearings on fiscal year 2025 appropriations. On Thursday, the Senate Appropriations Committee will debate its version of the fiscal year 2025 agriculture bill. Several top House Democrats told their leadership Sunday that President Joe Biden should step aside as the Democratic presidential nominee. This according to Punchbowl News, the New York Times, and NBC
and he's
News.
Not going
it's a bevy there.
Yeah, and he's not going to. He sent a letter to his Democratic party members in Congress that he is in the race to the end.
Yep.
And he's, as I understand it, there is very, very little that the party can do to take him off the ballot.
Wow.
So he's the guy.
Yeah. Well, the United States is intensifying scrutiny on Chinese land purchases near military bases due to concerns over national security and espionage. This, according to a special report by the Epoch Times. Chinese telecommunications firms installing cell towers near military bases raise suspicions of eavesdropping. The Government Accountability Office identified weaknesses in tracking foreign land purchases, calling for better coordination and data sharing. Once again, this story kind of keeps coming up, Chip.
Yeah, it does. But there's been some legislation that has happened at the federal and at the state levels that is cracking down on just where they can purchase land.
Well, Chip, the number of active drilling rigs in the United States is rapidly declining, showing the first significant change in almost a year. Over the past 10 weeks, the rig count has dropped by 41. That's a 6% decline, with most of the decrease coming from oil-focused rigs. This decline is likely influenced by recent consolidation in the shale industry. As deals made in the past year are finalized, major operators are shelving rigs to optimize their newly acquired assets. We saw a major drawdown in U.S. crude supplies last week, Chip. I wonder if this has got a little bit to do with that.
Yeah, it certainly could. We need to dig into that one.
And finally, USDA announced $145 million in funding for 700 loan and grant awards through the Rural Energy for America program, or REAP. Anyone interested in applying for USDA's REAP funding encouraged to contact their local USDA state energy coordinators for more info. Chip.
All right. Thank you very much, Davis. Let's bring in Brett Waltz, BAMWX.com. Good morning, Brett.
Hey, good morning, Chip.
Okay. Talk to me about Beryl. What's the situation?
Yeah, so Beryl did make landfall this morning. I was just checking before we hopped on. 2.3 million people without power right now, especially around that Houston metro area. It's going to continue to push further off to the north as we go throughout the day. It will weaken with time, but not before it brings a swath of heavy rain from northeast Texas and then eventually all the way through Missouri, Illinois, central and northern Indiana, and into Ohio, too, as we work into tomorrow and into Wednesday.
What does that heavy rain look like? Are we talking 2 to 3, 5 to 7? What's it look like?
Yeah, I think for, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, especially the southern half of Illinois, I think that you're looking more at a 2 to 3 inch type of deal, but some locally heavier totals kind of embedded of 4 inches plus can 100% be rolled out.
Gotcha. Okay. What does that do to the wet pattern that we've seen in the upper Midwest?
Well, it will ultimately allow for a little bit more of a lull in terms of rain activity throughout this week. There's still going to be some pop-up opportunities across parts of Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa as we go later on into this week, but not nearly as active consistently and as widespread as what we've been the next 7 days. Probably trends back wetter, though, as we go back into next week.
Okay. Temperatures? Any change in the temperature trends?
Yeah, not really. The core of the heat, as I think you all mentioned earlier, across the western part of the country, I think at times late this weekend, early next week, you can build some of that into the central U.S., but not consistently notable heat on the horizon.
Gotcha. All right, Brett. Hey, thank you so much, buddy. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you next week.
Yep. Thank you, Chip.
You bet. Brett Waltz, BAMWX.com. Check out the service that Brett and his partners offer there at BAMWX.com. Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete, is next on AgriTalk.
Machinery Pete here, folks. This segment of AgriTalk brought to you by our friends at Dakota Ag Innovations, makers of Dakota Shine, the best way I've seen to fix faded paint. Go to dakotashine.com or call 888-996-7801.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. It is Monday morning. That means it is time for a conversation with Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good, bud. How
Good.
are you? Did you have a good 4th?
Yes, absolutely we did. Spent a little time with some family. The grill may have fired up several times over the weekend.
That's a good report to hear.
Yeah, excellent. How about you?
Pretty low key. Just we had the family. We were on a family vacation over in Norway. a week and a half ago, so I got back and just kind of catching up a little bit and trying to get the rain to turn off here in Rochester. I think a buddy of mine said it's rained 30 of the last 36 days, so it's but it looks like a good week ahead, so we're hopefully we can dry out a bit.
Right. Trip to the motherland, huh?
Yeah, that was amazing. If you haven't gone to track down your family roots, it's one thing to see it on paper, the 23andMe or the DNA stuff, and hey, cool, my great grandpa, da da da. It's a whole nother thing to stand on the farm where they were living.
Yeah.
It just kind of can't really put it into words. So we had an awesome week. It was
good for you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. That is awesome. All right. Well, let's get to the pick of the week. What have you selected?
Well, it's a little slower on the 4th of July, but the last week of June, when I was over in Norway, I was tracking some big sales. Of course, a lot of late model equipment hitting the auction market, and our friends at the Steffes Group had a sale June 27th, Larchwood, Iowa, a lot of online dealer equipment, and they had a 23 model Case H Steiger 620 quad track. I think it only had 6 hours on it, of course, loaded up with all the warranty, and of course, you would expect it to bring about as high as we've ever seen, and it did. In fact, it brought 643,000 hard cash, which is I've seen over 192,000 tractors sold at auction the last 24 and a half years. That's the second highest modern auction price on a modern tractor. Steffes, interestingly, also has the record holder back from last summer. Of course, the market was a little higher then, but they had a John Deere 9RX 640 out in Williston, North Dakota, hit 661 last August. But, given the current market, I thought 643 was, it's off of a retail, but I mean, hard cash rate. Check
but
today.
It passed the test, doesn't it?
Well, 643, it's a big check to write. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But the trend is still the same, isn't it? That we're looking at a tractor market that is good, but it's backed off from the highs.
Yeah, it's definitely softened up. It's just kind of math is math type thing here.
Right.
Now, some interesting support data, because I don't ever like just hanging my head on, well, this brought X today. You want to, support with other data points. And it was interesting. I went in, Chip, and I looked at the first 6 months of each year going back 25 years. And we can use our filters on our website, machinerypete.com, for auction prices. And we looked at the raw number of 1 to 2 year old equipment items sold the first 6 months of the year. And so far in 2024, we're seeing, it's 74.2% higher than last year, which last year was a record.
Oh.
I think it's 1,372 1 to 2 year old items the first 6 months this year. And for comparison, you go back when the supply chain crunch was hitting back in 2021, of course, you couldn't get a piece of new equipment, and everything was tight as a drum. First 6 months of 21, we only saw 375 1 to 2 year old items sold at auction. And we're tracking stuff folks know we track stuff all across the US and Canada. So the one really interesting takeaway for listeners, I think, Chip, is, the market, we're recalibrating, belts are tightening. We all get it. Understandable. But as it pertains to used equipment and how you might want or need to update your used equipment lines, it's really dangerous right now, I think, to rest on what you knew from the past. So the same data example, I went back to 2014 and 15, which was the last big downturn in used values. And that was the biggest drop I've ever seen. 20 to 25% on large late model equipment, both 14 and 15. But in 2014, we only saw 312 1 to 2 year old items sold at auction first half of the year. And again, we just saw 1,300 this year.
Man.
Now the difference, you'll say, well, what is that all about? And here you got to pull back. Look at the difference in the dealer network versus 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you were a dealer like my dad used to be, 2 to 4 stores, and the market turned and you were stuck with 15 too many combines, it was problematic to move them all at once. You just couldn't. You had to hold and hope. Well, now, there aren't many 2 to 3 location dealers left. They're all, 20, 30, 40, 60. And it's super painful for these large dealerships to move this stuff out at auction and lose a lot of money on each item, but they're very focused on getting ahead of it. That's why we saw 1,372 items sold at auction, just like that 23 model 620 quad track we just talked about. So the dangerous part is assuming that this will drag on as long as it did last time, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Right.
You might need to be a little more aggressive than you think you have to be. That's what our dad is shouting at me.
This is really interesting, Greg. What you're telling me is that the dealers, when it comes to managing their inventory, they are ripping the Band-Aid off rather than pulling it off slowly.
Yeah, it's bleeding. I mean, they're bleeding. I mean, people know. I mean, that 623, I can sit here, or 643, I can sit here and say, wow, second highest auction price ever. Wow.
But
what's a new one cost? 6 hours on it. I mean, that's a loss for that dealer. Obviously, we all know that. But again, like you said, they're ripping the Band-Aid off, and the turn is so much faster, and that's in part because online auctions and online bidding. So again, it's dangerous. You farm your whole career, and you think, well, I know how this is going to play out. Well, it ain't like it was 10 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
Right. When you think about the volume that has been on the auction market, then, Greg, this bit of a setback that we've seen in value and the auction prices, the market has absorbed it really well.
Well, honestly, it has, which people will argue with that, and they'll say, no, this is a bloodbath out there. And it's like, well, again, given the volume, that's unprecedented. I mean, again, the data, it's 350% more 1 to 2 year old items than 2014, a decade ago. So
wow.
And now it's a day by day process, and the rest of the year, I'm sure we'll see lots of late model equipment sold. So at auction, so it's just evolving, and we just keep tracking it day by day.
Okay, all right. You got another big trip coming up this week. This looks fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's going to be one of our more fun trips I think I've done here. We're going out to film for the TV show to New York. We're going out to, there's a big auction Saturday in Canastota, New York. Alex Lyon & Son Auction Company, fantastic firm. And we're actually going to do a special episode of the TV show telling the story, excuse me, of this amazing auction company started in 1950 by Alex Lyon in Bridgeport, New York. Focused, interestingly, at the time, not so much auctions, but just private treaty sales for livestock and farm machinery.
Okay.
And then in 1973, Alex's son, Jack Lyon, he graduated from the University of Cincinnati with a marketing degree, came home to help out in the business, and they turned it. Jack led this amazing, last 50 years. They're one of the world's biggest construction auction firms.
Yeah.
And the sale they have Saturday, we'll film it for the TV show. But the day before, on Friday, folks, if you're in the area, come on out. You probably heard of this, but it's the 51st annual Alex Lyon & Son Hay Camp Barbecue. And I've been told, I have never been to it. I can't wait, but I've been told there's over 1,000 to 1,500 people there. New York strip steaks, beverages, games for the kids, just, but a testament to what Alex and his father, or Alex and his son Jack, built over the years, loyal customers. So really excited to get out there. And the sale Saturday, by the way, it has a number of unused items, some unused 23 model excavators, Cat 335. They got some unused wheel loaders, a Case 321F, a Cat 906, some dozers unused. I think Cat E6 LGP. So it's going to be great fun out in New York end of this week.
Yep. A lot of people might not realize, Greg, that along with the farm equipment prices, you've been tracking the construction equipment prices for the last 34 years, too.
Yep, one of our biggest categories, and it'll be fun to feature it on the TV show and watch that big, shiny stuff sell.
All right, Greg, good stuff. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Greg Peterson, Machinery Pete. We've got Roger Cryan up next.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Holy smokes, Brian. What a way to start this off, coming back from what for some was an extended weekend. But here we are with corn, soybeans, wheat, solidly lower here this morning. What's going on?
Yeah, absolute rout here, Chip. Just, getting just hammered here to kick off the week. Double-digit losses, like you mentioned, corn, soybeans, wheat. So we saw gains on Friday. So markets actually traded and pushed pretty solidly to the upside, but those have been fully erased and then some, and here to kick off the week. So not a good start. And this is, even though there was a Friday trading session, this is the probably the first full trading session for most coming out of the 4th of July. And historically, that's been a time frame where either you accelerate the current trend, which is down, or you reverse trend. And it doesn't look like it's off to a good start by any means.
Yeah, it looks to me like some of the fund managers out there took Friday off, and when they came back in and saw what happened on Friday, they said, oh, no, we're going to defend these short positions, and they jumped right back on it.
Absolutely, and they're already aggressively short, but weather-wise, just not a whole lot out there to be concerned about at this point in time, and they're just hammering the markets.
Got a little strength in the cattle complex, though.
Yeah, so feeders, because of the rout in the corn market, they're being supported in moderate to strong gains there. Much lighter buying interest in the live cattle futures and just modest gains there, but at least they're trading to the upside. Hog futures so far this morning are mixed, but most of the contracts are trading lower.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. That is Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady right here on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. If the world is your oyster, we've got pearls of wisdom on AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you are with us on this Monday morning. And it is becoming a Monday morning more and more as we get into it because
confirm. I'm back.
Yeah. we are awaiting our next guest to hook up with us and we'll get into the conversation as soon as we can. And there's a little bit of technical issues happening out there. It's just it's Monday morning. We're off and running, eh?
Let's pour some coffee on this day and see if we can, fire it up just a little bit.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. I do want to mention something that we have not talked about yet, and I'm trying to get a handle on just how bad it was out in Nebraska over the weekend with some hail damage. I believe it came on Friday and Saturday. But the hailstorms that rolled through, Davis, the posts that I've seen on social media and some of the comments from insurance adjusters, crop adjusters that I'm trying to figure out just how serious the damage was. But, these guys out there, Davis, they had what was one of the best crops that they've had in irrigated areas.
Yeah.
Where they haven't had to run the pivot a whole lot. It's one of the best crops that they've had in a long time. And it just got smoked. Which makes today and the market reaction just that much more frustrating because once again, like Brian said, there just isn't the market is showing no concern over the weather. None. And it might be no concern over the weather forecast. And they are looking at that dry area in the eastern Corn Belt, southern Illinois, Indiana, heck, even southeast Iowa that is sporting the quote-unquote abnormally dry conditions out there right now. They are in need of some rain. Well, it looks like the track of Hurricane Beryl is going to take some rain into, not some rain, a lot of rain into the areas that need it the most. And we are seeing the market react to it. Never mind the acres that were wiped out over the weekend. Evidently, the rain will do more good than the hail did damage, the way that the market is trading today. And I know that is not the fact or the case. I know that we've got some big issues out there that we've that need to be accounted for in this whole market, but evidently it's just going to take more time. And I'm as frustrated as anybody else talking about it's going to take more time to adjust for what has happened out there.
Well, and that's, I think my sense is that there are a number of producers who are able to kind of hang out here and wait and see how this shakes out and wait for another opportunity. But this downturn, if I'm a farmer, this begins to feel just slightly demoralizing here. I mean, we've got the first two contracts of the corns now in three-handle territory with the D's 24 at 409.5, down 14.5 on the day. Soybeans aren't doing much better. I mean, look at the Sept down at 1095, dude.
Yeah. There's a lot of the drop into that 409 level, or I think we've even been lower than that here this morning. But the drop that we've seen in corn is pretty tough to take right now. Actually, we are making new lows right now, right at 409. So it is a tough market situation, no question about that. And we're making new lows. We had the big down day last Monday, and then we tried to crawl it back. Actually, that was the previous Friday. Excuse me. Had the big down day on the 28th from the acreage report and the grain stocks report. Tried to crawl it back, and we did a bit last week, but today we've broken through that low that was posted on the 28th, and that is going to open a bunch of additional downside risk in here. And over the weekend, looking at some of the social media and over the holiday break, Davis, there was a lot of conversation about don't panic. There's probably more upside potential than there is downside risk at this point. I don't know. I'm not convinced of that.
No.
This market is acting crappy.
Yeah. It feels like it wants to flush, and I'm afraid of what that looks like when it's, air quotes, done doing that. Where does that even take us?
Right.
Because we're down double digits on corn this morning. That's a hefty move, bro.
Right. Oh, yeah.
At 10:30?
There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no question that's a big move to the downside, and it's one of the moves. If don't say you're saying it. You're saying what you're afraid might happen. This is a washout. And when we're 15 cents lower, we're 30 cents lower in beans to start this week. Good grief.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really something out there that we're trying to assess and trying to figure out just exactly what it's going to mean. See, I'm looking at the soybean meal market right now, which is off $8 to $10.
Yeah, there's no hope there.
Yeah, soybean oil is off 50 to 75 cents for the most part, or 50 to 75 points. So it's not a huge hammering in the soybean oil market. That market was up sharply last week in a holiday shortened week, but the soybean meal trade today is starting to pile on. and it is adding downside risk into the market right now. You've got November beans off 31 cents, 31 and a quarter, down at 10.98 and a half. It is a pile on kind of feeling that we are getting from the performance in the grains today. No question about it.
And meanwhile, apparently the weather for stocks is perfect. Traders seem very encouraged. The Dow up 59, the S&P up 7, the Nasdaq up 41 and almost 42 points right now.
Yeah. Yep. I got a little equity news for you.
Okay, let's have it. I want some.
Okay, very good. In the afternoon show on Mondays, every week we have Carrie Artak from Artak Advisory on.
Yeah.
And Carrie does a technical breakdown on three commodities. The three commodities that he is seeing the most activity in is typically what he will talk about. Mm-hmm. Well, we're only going to do two commodities going forward. Okay?
Oh.
Because Carrie is also the operator of wickedstocks.com.
Okay.
And he is going to replace one commodity with some stock analysis, whether it be one of the indices, the Dow, not likely, the S&P 500, most likely, or the NASDAQ. He might do some analysis on that, or he may pick individual stocks.
Huh.
And do
That's
some
pretty
analysis.
Cool. Yeah.
For example, this afternoon he's going to do, is it NVIDIA?
NVIDIA?
Have you heard of that one, Davis?
I've heard it. Yeah, it's come up a few times.
Have you?
Yeah.
You've maybe heard of that one? Yeah, he's going to do some analysis on NVIDIA.
Good.
And exactly what is going on there. And then we're going to keep it going. So
I love that.
Yeah, it's not like listeners of AgriTalk in the afternoon are 1,000% commodities. There's a little bit of room in there for some equity analysis from time to time as well. Wow. Believe it or not, some of the guys are actually in the stock market.
Really? Some of these guys do that?
Yeah, I know it. It's absolutely astonishing that they're spending some time with stock analysis as well. But there they are.
One does want to diversify. I think I heard somebody say that once. You want to have a diverse portfolio of some sort.
Yeah. I think that makes more sense. There's no question about it. And the indices, we're going to start with NVIDIA this afternoon. But Carrie will do some analysis of the indices as time goes on, and that's what gets my attention.
Yeah,
I'm very interested. I'm past the point of trying to be a stock picker.
Yes,
and to the point that I just want to. What's the general trends? What is the basket of stocks telling me?
Yep. Well, and Carrie, I mean, who better than Carrie Artak to provide us with just a little peek.
Right.
Under the veil of the stock market itself. Right. That's exciting, dude.
Yep. So if you want to get a head start on the conversation with Carrie that we are going to have this afternoon, go to wickedstocks.com and you can get signed up for a free trial there. Carrie will get you off and running so that you can be in position and ready to go. Okay, we are still trying to get a hold of our anticipated guests for this morning. We're going to keep efforting that. Davis and I will be back to wrap up today's AgriTalk.
We don't make the news, we render it. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Very, very recently, USDA proposed amendments to the federal milk marketing order. I doubt if we've got time to go through all of the changes, but I want to talk about the highlights here. Roger Cryan is the chief economist at the American Farm Bureau Federation. He joins us right now. Roger, hey, man, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. How are you?
I'm great, Chip. How are you doing?
Good. So what are the highlights here? There were 11 amendments, correct?
There were a good number of proposals. I think there were 21 proposals submitted.
Oh,
the amendments are bits and pieces. The hearing went on for better part of, it was 49 days of hearing spread out over 4.5 months. And USDA hit their target to release this thing on July 1st. And it's got a lot of good things and it's got some not so good things. The good things it's got is the Class 1 milk price, which it used to be based on the higher of the cheese milk value or the butter powder value, was switched to an average of back in 2019. This decision goes back to the higher, which was the number one thing that dairy farmers were looking for from changes in the federal order. So that was a good thing. There's an increase in the Class 1 differentials to kind of update the relationship among different locations across the country for the bottling milk, for the higher value bottling milk. It's not exactly Eau Claire Plus, but it's a little bit like that. And the idea is that some of these places, faraway places like New York and Florida, it costs money to get milk there. It costs money to supply that market, and they got updated analysis and updated numbers to kind of get that price up for those purposes. They updated the composition factors that go into some of the formulas for the Class 1 price, especially to kind of bump those prices up a little bit. They took the barrel cheese price out of the survey that's used for the cheese milk price because there was only about 10% of the milk only about 10% of the cheese in the country is priced using the barrel price, but about half of the Class 3 was based on that, so it was a mismatch. And it's only going to be blocks. There's a few other details, but the thing that is, I guess, we were least happy about was that they made substantial increases in the make allowances, that share of the milk price that the processor gets for turning the milk into products. And while we recognize it's important to have a make allowance, it's important to have some recognition that there's a cost for this thing. The Class 3 make allowance got bumped up significantly, even though cheese plants have been popping up all over the countryside. Everywhere you turn, there's new cheese making capacity. So it didn't seem to us like there was really any proof that there was a need for that. And we were calling for, here at Farm Bureau, we were calling for there to be no increase in the make allowance until there was an audited mandatory survey of plant processing costs like they used to have in California for their system. We haven't had any data like that ever in the federal system. They haven't had data in California like that since 2016. So they've increased the share that the processor gets without adequate evidence, in our opinion, that it needed to happen. So it's a mixed bag, but there's a comment period, and that comment period will end about 2 months after they put the thing in the Federal Register.
Right.
They released it informally, and it'll be formally published in the Federal Register sometime later this month. And then we have 2 months after that to get our comments in. And we are certainly hopeful that a couple of things like to adding 640-pound blocks to the survey to make sure that as the number of 40-pound blocks gets smaller and smaller, that we don't have to have another hearing just to get the survey beefed up. And there was a pretty good case, we thought, to increase the differential on Class 2 milk. So, we've got Class 1, which is milk, bottling milk. We got Class 3, which is cheese milk. We got Class 4, which is butter and powder. Pretty much everything else falls into Class 2. And there's a differential on that, an extra amount that's paid for that. It was based on the cost of drying and reconstituting milk. And those costs have gone up quite a bit in the 25 years since this formula was set. And we made that argument, and USDA said, "Nah, we don't think so. We don't feel like it." So we're hoping to get a couple of these things polished up a little bit.
Well, Roger, it sounds like now that the proposal is out, the work starts again to correct some of these issues, right?
Oh, well, we'll see. We'll see how much they're listening. I mean, the work that went into the thing. I mean, it starts again that we have one more chance, one more bite at the apple, one more chance to make our case on some of these points to get them to maybe reconsider. But an enormous amount of work and data collection analysis went into the process up to this point. And so now this is kind of just this parting shot, this last opportunity to say, we don't think you got this one right. Can you at least consider tweaking this a little bit? Can you at least consider redoing this a little bit? One of the things we were pleased with was that during the hearing, there was a lot of talk about delaying the return to the higher of for 12 months to allow markets to adjust. They did not put that in there. We made the case. We sent a letter to the department along with the Farm Bureau and Farmers Union together sent a letter to the department asking that this be issued on an emergency basis, that there be no delay. They didn't do the emergency basis, but what they did do is they didn't put in the 12-month delay. So we think that sped things up for farmers. Okay. And we're looking forward to some more improvements.
Okay. All right. Roger, hey, thank you so much for hopping on and talking about it. It's a complicated issue. We'll have to have you back on and dig into it a little bit more in the future and get a better understanding of just exactly what is being changed. Roger, thank you.
You're welcome, Chip.
All right. Roger Cryan, Chief Economist, American Farm Bureau Federation, talking about the Federal Milk Marketing Order. Yeah, a lot of changes happening there. Thank you for listening this morning. Come back this afternoon. We've got Dan Bossie from Ag Resource Company, and we'll be right here tomorrow morning at 10:06 Central.